Hi, my name's Kate Smith. I want to share with you today my story of my journey through postnatal depression. After 14 years, me and my partner decided it was time that we'd had another baby. Our eldest son was near 15. We weren't getting any younger, and we decided that basically our son needed a brother or a sister. I was probably at this point the healthiest I've ever been. I'd given up smoking, I'd lost 5 stone in weight, and I was just all round happy, healthy, and really looking forward to getting pregnant and having a new baby. After about 3 months of deciding that we were going to have another baby, I found out I was pregnant. I was overjoyed. It was the best thing that could ever happen to me. It was like winning the lottery. The whole family were made up. We only had a small family. It was a new beginning for us all. During the first 3 months of the pregnancy, I had the usual morning sickness. I had migraines. But I thought, now after 3 months, get 3 months over and it'll pass. Unfortunately for me, it didn't. I was constantly sick. Morning, afternoon, night time. I permanently had a tablet stuck in my mouth to stop me from vomiting. Constant appointments to doctors, to the hospital, speaking to consultants. I ended up being so bad that I was admitted a couple of times because I was dehydrated and kept in for a few days. At 32 weeks, my waters broke. I wasn't aware that my water broke. I didn't know what was going on. As far as I was concerned, I wasn't ready to give birth. I wasn't full term. I went into the hospital, had a few tests, they confirmed it and told me that I'd have to stay in for 2 weeks because the baby's lungs would not be developed enough and they'd like to keep me on bed rest and induce me at 34 weeks. I was distraught. I'd never experienced anything like this. I was feeling guilty because I had to stay away from my son. I missed my son. I was put on bed rest. I was constantly losing water. I'd go to the shower of a night time and I'd just stay in the shower for half an hour and I'd cry. And I'd phone my friend and I'd talk to her, the only friend that I'd speak to at the time. And I was in a terrible state, but I'd walk out that shower as though there was nothing wrong. At 34 weeks, I was taken down to delivery ward and I was put on a drip. It was the most horrendous time of my life. I had all the drugs that they could give me. I eventually gave birth to a beautiful little girl 2 days later. To my surprise, I didn't know what I was having. I didn't want to know. And it was a big surprise. I remember my mum and my sister crying because they were so happy. I was crying for me because I'd been through such a horrendous ordeal. Plus, I couldn't understand why the baby was taken away from me. Although I'd been told that she would be taken away, a team of midwives and doctors come in and immediately took her away from me, and then I was left to be cleaned up. I got wheeled down to see my baby in special care. I remember in a wheelchair, still feeling drugged up, and as though I was in a dream, I'm wondering, what's going on? Where are they taking me? People going past me in the corridor, and I was basically felt as though I was in my own world. I went into special care and I went to see my baby, and It wasn't anything like I expected it to be. There was wires, there was tubes up my nose, and I basically didn't know what to do while I was there. To go pick it up, can I touch it? And I just again burst into tears and cried and cried. I was eventually taken away and they took me back up to my room. And I was left there overnight. My family went back and I was left there overnight. The next morning, all I could think of, I need to be by my baby. And I went looking for her. And I went down to special care. I was at the other end of the hospital to where she was. I went to find her, and it was such a scary environment to be in. I'd been through a traumatic birth the day before, and I walked in there and there was a room full of incubators with tiny, tiny babies in, and tubes and machines going on and off. And I was basically lost. My vision of me having a baby would be this baby at the end of my bed. There'd be other mums around me, and we'd be chatting and looking at our babies. Oh, isn't she lovely? Isn't he gorgeous? It wasn't a bit like that for me whatsoever. The next 2 weeks that Lola was in special care was very challenging for me, as I also had to go home. I was given the option to stay in the hospital or to go home. I needed to go home to be with my son. I probably needed time away from the hospital as well. But I also felt as though I was abandoning my baby. It was horrendous, making a choice to go home or to stay and be the mum that I should be. I thought I should be. I decided to go home. Every morning at 8 o'clock I would get up and I'd go to the hospital because I needed to be there for a 9 o'clock feed. I'd go in, I'd feed her, I'd change her, and I'd sit there and I'd probably some days spend 8-9 hours a day sitting in that chair, feeding her, talking to her. The only time I probably walk away was when I was going to go have some lunch, or I was going to the breastfeeding room to express some milk because that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I was told. That was the best thing for baby, is breast milk. So I tried to do everything that the hospital had said, loads of contact with the baby, express your milk to feed her. Then we tried to feed her. That was hard. I tried to feed her myself. That was scary because she was so tiny. I'd done that for 2 weeks, backwards and forwards. Towards the end, I got a cold, and because I had a cold, I was feeling ill, I couldn't go in, so other people went in for me to look after her. But I would ring probably every 3-4 hours to make sure she was okay. I just didn't feel as though it was right. My baby should have been home with me. That's the way it was. Towards the end of the 2 weeks, I started to feel... I remember waking up one morning thinking, not again. I got to go to this hospital again. And getting the bus there, and then I'd speak to people at the road where I lived at the time, and they'd be like, "Oh, mate up," and I'd be like, "Oh yeah," but really I wasn't. I was so tired. I was exhausted. I just wanted to go home and go to bed and not have to worry about getting up the next morning. I would lay in bed when I would go home and I'd worry about being late. And when I would be there, I'd be looking at other families coming in, other mums sitting at the babies, and they'd be there for an hour and they'd go home and see them till the next day. And I couldn't understand that. Eventually, Lola had put on enough weight and she was able to come home. the day that she was due to come home, I'd got picked up, I had my car seats, I'd had everything ready. Although I wasn't prepared because my water went 32 weeks, I was allowed home on a day visit before I give birth to go and get stuff. I'd got the baby car seat, got picked up, put her in the car seat. But I always felt when I was in special care that I was never doing anything right. I always felt that I was being watched. Am I dressing the right? Am I feeding the right? So it brings it home. My mum was there with me, the family were there, to come down, everything. I was so made up, there was balloons, there was everything. Everyone went home then. I was left alone on my own. I was sitting downstairs, and I decided to stay downstairs with the baby in a crib, and I would sleep on the couch. Slept on the couch all night. I remember just feeling so cold all night and rigid. I didn't move from that one position except for when she'd cry. And she used to make this noise like something at the back of her throat, as though she was choking all the time. So I'd be constantly jumping up, picking her up, jumping up, and it was just absolutely horrendous the first night that I had it. I was so scared. I'd never had a baby so tiny, and because she'd been in special care and she was premature, I was worried that I wasn't doing things right for her and am I holding in the right position, have I winded her properly. Next morning, I was awoke by a phone call and it was my mum. Hi Kate, okay? Usual mum, jolly self. Everything okay? And I went, no, not really. She went wrong. I said, Mum, I just feel like I've been run over by the 82 bus. And they were the exact words I said to her. The 82 bus, because that is how I felt. I understood at that point what was meant by emotionally and physically exhausted. I was. Mum come down within the hour, come to the rescue as usual. She'd go and have a nice bath, She fed the baby and she said, I'll stay tonight. I'll stay with you, you can have a good rest. It's okay. That one night turned into 6 weeks. 6 weeks later, she was still there. For the following week, I spent my time sleeping, washing bottles, washing floors, in that bath for some reason. One thing I didn't do was spend time with my baby. And that was probably, if I'm true, because I didn't want to. I began to resent this baby, and I felt as though she'd been probably that I hadn't asked for her, that she was more of a burden. But I would look at her in the cot and I think, why? Why don't I feel so love her? I've got everything. I've got a lovely little girl, got a big pink Moses basket, everything that I wanted I've got, but I wasn't happy. Everyone else around me was happy, but not me. People would knock on my door to come and see the baby, and I'd fall to pieces. I'd go upstairs, all say I'm tired, tell them I'm in bed. My mum would come up to me and she'd say to me, no, do you want to hold the baby? Oh, isn't the baby gorgeous? And I'd go, yeah, she's nice. And I'd go, do you want to give her a kiss? And I'd say, yeah, no, she's alright, just put her down, you're spoiling her. Just put her down. After about a week or two, I'd had a few episodes of crying and feeling overwhelmed. It was all too much. My mum asked me, and she said, is there something you need to talk to me about? What's wrong, Kate? You're not you. And I just said, I don't know, Mum. I don't know. And I want to know what's wrong with me, because I don't love my baby. I didn't want to pick it up. I couldn't understand why I didn't want to pick it up. Why didn't I want to cuddle her and kiss her? All I wanted to do was to make sure that she was dressed well. She was clean, dressed well, and back in a pram or a cot. And it was all because I didn't want anyone to talk about me. I was more concerned in the house being spotless, the baby's pram being perfect, the wheels had to be sparkling. I was more concerned what I looked like and what I was presenting on the outside than what I was feeling on the inside. I eventually got in contact with my midwife and I told her I was feeling, and she made a GP appointment for me there, and then she phoned the doctors, said Mum needs to come in. Goes in and he told him how I was feeling, and he asked me a few questions. Do you feel like this? Do you feel like that? And he said, you've got postnatal depression. I went, oh right, here's some antidepressants, take them and come back in a month. And that was that. And I was so alarmed. Me, I've got postnatal depression. I've heard of postnatal depression, but what is it? And I just got up and said, thank you, doctor, and I walked out. And I was walking home, and I remember bumping into an old friend of my mum's and saying to her, I've just been told I've got postnatal depression. And she went, oh, have you? I'm awful sorry, love. And walked away from me and got on the bus. I remember standing there feeling, why has she done that? There's something wrong with me, have I got a disease? And I walked home, and it was really hard to walk down there without crying. And I got in and I burst out crying again, because that's all I ever seemed to do was cry to my mum. And my mum said, I had a feeling that you had postnatal depression. I said, they give me some tablets. I need to take tablets. And my mum was very wary of me taking antidepressants. Which if you need to take them, you've got to take them. So we tried together to bond with the baby. My mum spoke to me a lot. I spoke to my friends. There was only a handful of friends that I would allow in through the front door. I wouldn't pick the phone up and speak to anyone. I didn't like to go out the door. I never did go out the door. I went totally the opposite way to where I was planning to go because I wanted to avoid everyone. I didn't want to speak to anyone. I didn't want to hear how happy people were for me with this baby, how beautiful she was. Because inside I was screaming, help. I wanted help. I remember one woman saying to me, oh, she's fabulous, she's lovely. And I wanted to say to her, well, take her home then. That's how I felt, take her home then, because I don't think she's fabulous. This may be cruel, what you're hearing, but it's how I felt. And I couldn't help the way I was feeling. I wanted to get better though. I wanted to have those feelings. I would look out the window and see mums walking along with the prams and think, why don't I bounce up the street like that? Why aren't I enjoying my baby? Anyway, it came to a point where I thought, I can't cope with this. I'm going to have to go back to the doctors. Goes back to the doctors. I was hard to live with. I put my mum through hell. I went back to the doctor and said, I need help. If you don't help me, I'm not going to be here in the next few weeks, because that's how bad I felt. I felt as though I wanted to just end it all. I just wanted to curl up into a ball and for it all to go away. And that's when I started to Google postnatal depression. I thought I'm going to have to do this myself. I didn't feel as though I'd got any support from the GP. I was told there was a 6-month waiting list for counselling. And that's when I come across the PND project. After the first meeting with Pauline, specialist practitioner for the PSS postnatal depression project, we'd agreed on an action plan. We'd agreed that I was to have one-to-one support at home on a fortnightly basis. On these occasions we would sit, we would chat, we would discuss how I was feeling, We'd explore why I was feeling, which I think was really important. We'd explore why I was feeling the way I was feeling about my baby. We'd also think about what would help me to get back to being me, to being Kate. This included going to groups with other mums that would be experiencing the same thing as me. And that was fantastic support. Just talking to other mums about how you were feeling as though you weren't the only person in the world thinking the same thoughts as you. And also it helped me to socialise again, because I had a lot of social anxiety. I felt as though I no longer fitted in. I also was signposted to other agencies that could support me, CAB. I was, given GP referrals to go to the gym. I was offered holistic therapies. And also, I was also given a nursery place for my baby. So this would allow me time to access the groups, to go and sort out my debt. I had a lot of debts because, as I've said earlier, I wouldn't answer phones, I wouldn't open letters. I also went to the hairdressers, looked after myself. That was a big thing, went to hairdressers. Had me time. That was so important, to have me time. I was also taught how to relax. And that was a big thing. I needed to learn how to relax in my own home. I needed to learn how to deal with the thoughts in my head, what was going on, why I was thinking the way I was thinking. They call it the chatterbox. I was able to deal with that. And I think what the most important thing was to me is that I never felt judged. I felt as though I could speak openly about how I was truly feeling. I didn't have to pretend to be someone else. They were fantastic. Pauline is my angel and always will be. She saved my life. The project saved my life. I wanted to share with you my story of my journey through postnatal depression. I want anyone out there who's suffering to speak out. Don't suffer alone. Let's break the silence. Let's eliminate all the stigma surrounding postnatal depression. It's an illness and it can be treated. I'm sitting here in front of you today, a different woman than what I was 5 years ago. I would never have got in front of a video camera. I'm happy. I love my girls to death. I love my son. I love being the mum I am today. I'm now volunteering on the project. It's my way of giving back what they've gave to me. I am living proof that recovery is possible.